Hello, listeners. This is Matthew Watkins with another Conference Talk Shorts edition. This past conference, April 2023, President Ballard told a heartbreaking story. He spoke of his time as a bishop when he felt especially impressed to go visit a certain widow in his ward. But it was late at night and it was snowing, so instead he went home and went to bed and said, "I will visit her in the morning." He had a sleepless night, of course, as the spirit harassed him, and he got up first thing in the morning, ran to her house to find her daughter answering the door with tears streaming down her face and said, "Bishop, I'm so glad you came. My mother passed away just 2 hours ago." This story brought to mind another story from General Conference, this time back in April 2016 by Elder Mervyn B. Arnold, who related the story of a man named Daniel. He was part of a fishing company, and as he was out, the storm was getting kind of bad, and so he and the other boats decided to head for port. One of the boat's engines stopped working, and so his boat attached the cable to the, incapacitated boat and started chugging into port and sent in a distress call and let the authorities know, "Hey, listen, we are in serious trouble here. There's a boat here. Their engine doesn't work. We need immediate assistance." And so what happened was the Fishermen's Association and the Navy and the Coast Guard all met together to start deciding on a plan. There were some individuals who wanted to just go out there right away and rescue these poor souls. But they were told, no, we have to wait until we figure out the optimal way to do this. During this time, while they were in their deliberations, the cable connecting the two boats broke, and Daniel's boat decided one more time to try and go back and see if they could rescue their fishermen. Yet the committee continued deliberating. By the time the committee decided what the optimal approach to rescue these people were, it was too late. Both boats had sunk. Daniel and his fellow crewmen had died. Now, I don't mean to make this such of a downer, but it's an important message that we need to remember. I'll share one more story from my personal life. I was part of a ward council at one time, and I gotta admit, I was going into the meetings and not feeling super optimistic. You know how the scriptures say that we must never be weary in well-doing? I can honestly say I was never weary in well-doing, but I was weary in well-doing meetings. I was so sick and tired of sitting around and talking about things and not actually doing a whole lot. Talk, that's always seem to do sometimes. As I was on my way to that meeting, I was charged with a spiritual thought, and I was pondering what to share. As I was driving down the road, I noticed some roadkill. There's a dead deer off the side of the road, and surrounding the deer was a bunch of vultures. And I thought to myself, what do you call a group of vultures? Is it a flock? Is it a pack? Is it a herd? Is it a school? You know, in English, we have a bunch of different words for different types of animal groups. And so I looked it up on my phone. It's actually a committee of vultures. And I thought that's kind of fitting, as they're sitting there with their hunched shoulders, picking at a problem and not actually really helping with anything. And when I got to my committee meeting that morning, I said, what kind of committee are we? Are we like a committee of vultures that pick at something and don't actually do anything? Or do we get things done and fix it? Once upon a time when I was in a branch presidency, I had a similar experience where we had these wonderful meetings talking about problems. And it didn't seem like we actually got a whole lot done until one week. Our agenda was just really short for our presidency meeting. And we deliberated, okay, so should we just call it a day and go home early? And one of the counselors said, how about we go out and we visit two of these names that we just talked about? That was an amazing experience because the families that we visited came back to church that Sunday and they continued to come. What we did in that 30-minute outing as a branch presidency had more of an impact on the ward than hours and hours of deliberations and meetings and presidency meetings and branch councils and everything else that had happened before. It gave me an important lesson. Now, I want to clarify here. I'm not talking about politics. I'm not talking about national policy or anything like that. I personally think that often the just do something, we have to do something, anything tends to get us into more trouble than it solves problems when we're responding to a crisis. I think when it comes to a national level, we do have to be very, very careful about how we proceed and make sure that we're not reacting emotionally. And I'm not suggesting we react pure emotionally in spiritual matters as well. But I am warning us against what is called analysis paralysis. And this type of paralysis affects me very strongly. Actually, we're going through our finances right now, and I'm looking back with a lot of regret at time that I could have done something more optimal with my money, but instead I just sat there and says, well, I don't know what the optimal strategy is, so I'll just go with what I know is safe. And that's opportunity cost that eats at you pretty fast when you think about compounding interest. The same thing is true spiritually. If we are sitting and deliberating and trying to figure out the optimal strategy to the point that we're losing out on opportunities to do good, we're doing something wrong. As Elder Arnold quoted this scripture, the Lord reminds us, "Ye have not strengthened or brought again that which was driven away, or sought that which was lost, and I will require my flock at your hands." It's a haunting threat and a promise from the Lord to motivate us to get off of our chairs, stop talking, and get to work. Catch you next time on the Conference Talk Podcast.